Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about being able to control our dumbbells on chest presses. And this is something I see people mess up on a lot. And again, it's going to be funny because I'm a strength athlete, I'm a power lifter. And people will think that we're all about ego lifting, but the reality is often quite the opposite. Most of us really care about control. We care about controlling weights, and if we're going to do supplemental work for hypertrophy, our goal is to build muscle with it. It's not necessarily to ego lift. And I'm not saying there aren't movements that benefit from going real heavy. There aren't movements that benefit from using a little bit of body English, which would mean, for those unfamiliar with the term, cheating a little bit. But I think things like dumbbell presses fall into the category of that not being the case. And usually you see, and I see this a lot from people in the bodybuilding type world, mainly because they don't separate their exercises into different categories, because for them everything is just gains. They tend to ego lift on exercises like this. And this is where you see injuries. You see guys get hurt, and then you see people who don't even get the benefits. And it's funny because one of the biggest things you'll see right up front with any sort of chest press is they need spotters and everything to get the weight into place. They're like, well, this is the weight that I can use, but then you watch them use it, they can't even bring the weight all the way down. And to me, that's really comical. Why? Because that's why we use dumbbells. Okay, one of the biggest benefits of dumbbells, one of the biggest benefits is the extended range of motion. You can get deeper with dumbbells than you can with a barbell. So if we're looking at it from a hypertrophy perspective, that's one of the number one benefits, right? Number two, you have that instability, which can, and I've done videos explaining this, can fatigue different muscles at a different rate. In other words, because we're not in a fixed path, we're not in a fixed bar path as much as the barbell creates, and definitely the opposite of what a machine creates, what happens? As we get more fatigued, the bar path changes more and more. So what does that mean? That means that the muscles that are starting to reach failure take less of the load, and the muscles that still have strength left start taking over, and they get more fatigued. So you're actually more likely to reach a higher state of fatigue in all of the primary movers, right? And on a chest press, that's obviously things like pecs, and even the way that we grip it can affect upper versus lower pecs. Of course, front delts, triceps, so on, right? Well, if you're just short stroking the reps, you're definitely missing a lot of that benefit because you're not even getting the full hypertrophy potential. You're not working all those muscles, and you're actually creating a potential because you're reducing the range of motion for your stronger side to go deeper and your weaker side to not go so much. So you actually, if you're not doing the full range of motion on dumbbells, you're creating muscle imbalances left to right much easier, right? Because dumbbells are notorious for that. It's the opposite of what people think, that, oh, dumbbells create evenness. No, if you're not doing the full range of motion, dumbbells will actually make an imbalance worse. Okay, so guys are short stroking the reps. They're missing a ton of hypertrophy. Again, also using weights they can't handle. Of course, and you get guys who are like, well, I need the heavier weight for my first exercises, right? Because I only use dumbbells. And it's like, well, what sort of clown mindset is that? What do you mean you only use dumbbells? Do you know how silly that is? You're creating a situation that doesn't need to exist. If you're like, well, I have to go super heavy on my first exercise because it's my first one, since I only do 3 different dumbbell movements for my chest. Well, if you would just use a barbell, you could have eliminated all that. And for you to say you only use dumbbells, that's as silly as someone who says, I only use the barbell. I never consider anything else for a chest. Well, why? Why? Like, why are you imposing this limitation on yourself. That's not the best way to get maximum gains. I think you would be better off combining the two. And if you're going to do big, heavy work, it makes sense to use the barbell. Why? The range of motion is predetermined. We can use a heavier weight. We have less instability. You can put more direct tension. It's less ego lifting and more control when we go real heavy. And heavy being relative. Maybe heavy for you is 6 rep sets. I don't consider 6 rep sets heavy. Maybe for you an all-out 10 rep max. I don't know. Heavy being relative to what you're doing and what you perceive. You'd be better using a barbell for that. That way it's going to be less ego lifting and there's going to be more control. It'd be more control. Dumbbells exist to really finish off all the muscles. They exist to give you the deep ranges of motion. Right? They're there as metabolic fatiguers. And really when we start talking about that instability, making sure that we get a little more balance between the different muscles involved, right? That usually implies metabolic fatigue. Well, how do we get metabolic fatigue? With a little bit higher reps. Okay. Probably doing more than 5. Might be 10, might be 12. But if we're trying to induce that metabolic fatigue, we're not going to be using super heavy weights. And I'm not saying you can't induce it with your barbell work first. I mean, that's a great way to look at it. You could do barbell exercise first and then do a dumbbell. But you could do both with higher reps if you're in a phase of your training where you're seeking a ton of metabolic fatigue. All right, that's fine. But the point is, if you cannot pick them up and put them down on your own without a spotter, you're probably going too heavy. You are probably going too heavy. You're not really using dumbbells in their optimal way, which is, again, as we said, to induce metabolic fatigue and a little more complete development. Right? You're not using them optimally, and your injury risk is much, much higher. Okay, barbells, it's harder to get hurt. If you're going to go heavy, you're going to take sets close to failure, you're going to ego lift in any way, it's safer to do it with the barbell. It really is. Because with dumbbells, you have a deeper range of motion. So if something goes wrong, you're going to get stretched more. So think about that from a muscle tear perspective. Also, they have instability. Again, your injury risk goes up. Your injury risk goes up. Dumbbells are not the tool to go heavy on. They really aren't. Not on movements like this. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.